everyone, welcome to my channel. For today's video, I thought it would be fun to do a full face of ABH products. So this is actually my first time doing this on my channel since ABH is not necessarily a brand that I feature that much, but recently I got a lot of new ABH products in my Ipsy icon box, and so I wanted to try them out with all of you today. These are new to me products, not necessarily brand new to the market. But between those new products and all of my existing products, I realized I have a full face to share with you guys. So today I'll be going over their Luminous Foundation, their Magic Touch Concealer, a large portion of all of their brow products, and then I have their Primrose Palette, which is an eyeshadow and cheek palette, and their cream bronzer, and their lipstick. So if you guys are interested in ABH, then just stick around. So let's start out with Complexion. So I have a sample here from Sephora of their Luminous Foundation in the shade 220N. I have tried this once before in a different sort of like sample that comes in those sachets. So this is not a first impressions, but for today's video, I thought it would be good to pick up another version of this. So I did get shade matched today, so this should be a pretty accurate shade for me. This is a liquidy but creamy texture. And I'm gonna go in with my new sponge from Refer. They recently launched this sponge and I've been liking it. I wouldn't say that I necessarily like it as much as my Beauty Blender, but I got this for $2 in the recent sale. So would highly, highly recommend picking it up if the sale is still going on, or if you can get it for a discount otherwise. Basically, in comparing this with my Beauty Blender, I would say that it doesn't absorb as much product, which on the one hand is really good from the standpoint of course, not wasting product, but it also means it takes a little bit more time to blend out your makeup just because it isn't absorbing the excess. So if you find that you really don't like how the Beauty Blender absorbs product, then I would highly recommend this sponge. So here we have one layer of the foundation on the skin, and as you can see, it leaves a really nice natural luminous finish. So I wouldn't say that it's like super dewy or anything like that. Overall, it's a very natural kind of satin finish. Let me actually turn down the brightness so you guys can see a little bit more clearly. So this is how my skin is looking with that foundation on. And let me just add a little bit more of it around the center of my face, just for good measure. And I would say the first time I tried this foundation, I wasn't like blown away. I was impressed with it. I think it's a really nice formula, a very solid kind of medium coverage, natural satin finish, great for an everyday basis foundation. But I wasn't moved enough to pick it up in a full size, and so we'll see today if anything changes. But so far so good. I think the foundation is looking really nice. Next up, let's go in with concealer. So I actually have a full size and a mini size of the ABH Magic Touch Concealer. And this is actually one of my favorite products from ABH. So I featured this in my best of 2022 makeup video. This is actually one of my most used concealers from last year. So in the large size, I have this in shade 7 over here. And then the small one is shade 6. So you can see they're fairly similar. Here's shade 6 and here's shade 7. I would say that shade 6 has a little bit more of a yellowy undertone, whereas shade 7 is a little bit more peachy. But on the whole, they're quite similar. For today's look, I will go in with shade 7. And what I like about this formula is there's some concealers that I find work well on the face, but not the under eye, or on the under eye, but not kind of for blemishes. But I think this is a really good concealer for multi-purpose use. So it has high enough coverage that I think it fares really well over blemishes. It's sort of a sufficiently thick texture to really cover any blemishes. But at the same time, it can be made kind of thin enough that it looks flattering on the under eye area as well. So recently, I haven't been using it as much because I've been really obsessed with the Dior Forever Skin Correct concealer. That one's my current favorite. but I still do really like this. And I tend to go for this on days when my skin is maybe a little bit less happy and I really need a little bit of extra help in the coverage department. So with concealer down, let's go in with some eye primer. This is actually my current all-time favorite eye primer. This is a mini of the ABH eye primer. You only need a tiny bit of this product. It's very white, and so it will not only prime your lids, but also ensure that any sort of colors will really pop. So especially if you're using like pastel eyeshadows, I would highly recommend checking out this primer. Now, if you have a deeper skin tone and you don't want that kind of white cast look, then I wouldn't necessarily recommend this. But at least for my skin tone, I think it does the perfect amount of brightening that really helps the eyeshadows show up very clearly. And what I really like about this formulation is I think it's really good for setting your eyes, making the eyeshadow last longer, but it also ensures that the mattes are able to blend easily. And that for me is a huge problem with a lot of eye primers. I find that they're good for making the shimmers stick, but not good at making the mattes blend out. But I think this one does a pretty good job of both. So before I set my face, I want to go in with the rest of the liquid and cream products. So I have this Liquid Glow from ABH. This is a face highlighter. And then I also have this cream bronzer. So let's first go in with this cream bronzer. This is a product I haven't tried yet, so I'm very intrigued. I have this in the shade Amber. This is what the packaging looks like. And here is the untouched product. So let me give you guys a swatch of this. So, ooh, it's very, very creamy and emollient. Looks a little bit kind of caramel undertoned. So I'm going to go in with my BK Beauty 107 brush. This is my current favorite for cream bronzers. And just going to tap that in. Ooh. Okay, that actually looks pretty good. Definitely quite a luminous finish on initial application, but the undertone actually looks pretty good. I was a little bit worried given how caramel it is, but I think against my golden undertone skin, it actually works decently well. A little bit on the jawline as well. So here we have it on this side of my face and no bronzer on this side. I feel like because this is such an emollient formula, it definitely blends in very easily. I'm kind of curious how much this can be built up because it's not that deep on my skin, which I think is good for kind of like an everyday bronzy look. But this is definitely a bronzer and not a contour. So if you're trying to get that really snatched, sculpted look, I think this is a little bit too warm for that. And then with my BK Beauty 112 brush, I'm going to also just take a little bit of this on my nose as well, just to add a little bit more dimension. So there we go. Here is the cream bronzer. Overall, very nice first impression. I think this blended in super easily. I'm still a little bit on the fence about the shade. I think it's really nice kind of for everyday basis. I think most days I would maybe want something a little bit more sculpting and a little bit less yellow in undertone, but overall I think it works. Now for this liquid highlighter, this is a product I have not gotten along with a lot so far. I have tried this one time and I just kind of put it over my blush and I felt like it really didn't look that good over blush. So today I'm actually going to try putting this on kind of all the high points of my face right now before I powder, and hopefully it looks good that way. I don't know. I found for myself, at least usually for liquid highlighters, it's best if I just mix it in with a base product or use it underneath. But I forgot to do that today, / I also wanted to show you guys how the foundation looks by itself. So let's see how we can make this work. So here is the swatch. This is the shade Oyster, which actually has a little bit of a rose gold element with it. It's not really a champagne, which you might expect given that name. And so I'm just gonna dot a bit of this on my face like that, and then maybe a little bit of this on my nose. And I'm gonna go back in with that BK Beauty 112 brush and just kind of lightly sweep it around. I do find with this product a little bit goes a long way, so as you can see, that I think left a pretty nice shine there. I think if you put too much it can look a little bit unnatural, but with this amount, hopefully it should be pretty good. Okay, I think that's looking nice actually. Alright, so this might be a good way to use it if you're someone who, like me, is not normally a huge fan of liquid highlight. But let me, since I have a lot of this left on my hand, let me take a little bit of it and maybe just like sweep it on my forehead. Try to get a little bit of kind of lit from within action, because like I said, I am going to put powder on top and that's probably going to bring a lot of this shine down. Nice. Okay, I actually really like it this way. I'm glad this video motivated me to take this out because I'd already put this into my second drawer, so that's where kind of products go to die in terms of, you know, they're not really in my top drawer anymore, but I like this. This actually looks pretty nice. So I would say if you like liquid highlighters, this one's a pretty solid formula. As you can tell, there's no like micro glitteriness to it. I think it actually looks really natural if you just kind of buff it into the skin like I did today. So now let's get into ABH's claim to fame, which is brow products. So I have a lot of ABH brow products. I have her Brow Freeze. This one is super popular for feather brows. I have her Brow Wiz, kind of the OG that really started it all. I have her Brow Definer, which is like a chunkier version of this. I have her Brow Pen, which is more like a marker. And then I also have her Clear Brow Gel and her Tinted Dip Brow Gel as well. So I only have 2 brows, so I'm going to try to use as many of these products. I guess I'll do 2 different brow looks just so we can see as many of these in action as possible, but I'll also give you guys my review. Oh, and before I forget, I also have her powder brow, her brow powder as well. So yeah, I think I might have almost all of her brow products. So at least for any of you who are curious about her brow products, this video will be a really good place to start out. Okay, so first off, let's go in with her Brow Freeze. So this is actually a product I don't like that much, and I actually did today's look, I guess, in the wrong order, because with this product, I highly recommend doing this before you put on foundation, because otherwise, when you're applying this to your brows, you can get foundation in them. But it's too late today, so I have here my Wayne Goss brow spoolie, and I'll take just a tiny bit of it today because I have so many other brow products to lay on top. She does also sell one of these spoolies that has like a flat end as well, which I think works a little bit better for this, but I'm just going to use this today. So I'm just going to use this on my right brow, and as you can see, it definitely kind of slicks your hairs back. Now for me, I'm not a huge fan of the feather brow look. I find that I don't really know how to make it look super good with my brow hairs. But if you are a big fan of that effect, I think this product is pretty good. So as you can see, I don't know, on my brows, I just feel like it doesn't really look that good. Please comment down below if you are a brow freeze connoisseur or a feather brow connoisseur and know how to make them look really good. But this is kind of like the best I can do with my brows, which doesn't really, I don't know, they do look fuller, but they also kind of look a little wild, which is not really my preference. So there, that's brow freeze on my brows in case you guys are curious. And you might be able to see as well, there is a little bit of foundation that got into my brows. Today it's not that bad, but like I have tried this in previous times where I've accidentally gotten a ton of foundation in my brows. So comparatively, today's application isn't that bad. So now I'm going to go in with my Brow Wiz. I have this in shade Granite. And I'm just going to use this to kind of fill in any sparse areas on this brow and try to kind of give it a little bit more shape. So this is kind of the product that started ABH as a brand and really put them on the map. I feel like ABH was the first brand to really take brows very seriously. And as you guys can tell, they've released a lot of brow products since then. Personally, I will say that ABH doesn't have my favorite brow products today. Like the Brow Wiz used to be my favorite brow pencil. Like when it first came out, it was definitely ahead of the game. But I feel like since then, a lot of other brands have stepped up their brow products, and ABH can no longer kind of rest on its laurels. But it's still really good overall. Basically, I think in general, to me at least, ABH is just like a very solid brand. Other than the concealer and the primer, it doesn't really have my favorite Holy Grail products, but all of its products are pretty solid. Okay, so there we go. So now we have some Granite in there. You can see it just added a little bit more color. Now let's go in with the brow definer, and I have this in shade dark brown. In case you guys are curious, this is the difference between the two. The Brow Wiz has a very small tip, whereas the brow definer has a much thicker kind of triangular tip. So if you want just kind of a really quick everyday look, the brow definer is definitely a faster way to just really quickly fill in your brows like I'm doing here. For me, most days I would probably just do something like this and just quickly brush them out. Compared to other brow pencils, I will say that the brow definer is quite pigmented, as you can maybe tell from today's look. So if you want a lighter touch, I would recommend maybe like some K-Beauty brow pencils instead. But this is really nice if you want a pretty strong brow. Now for the brow pen, this is something that I don't really know very well how to use. So basically this is how it comes across. This is the shade Ebony. So I think if you do this properly, you can make really nice hair-like strokes, but as you guys can see from right there, I'm not really the best at this. I feel like it just kind of looks like I'm painting with a marker on my brows, and yeah, I don't really like the effect it gives me because I think it's sort of user error. I'm just not the best at using this kind of product. But if you are able to control it well, I think it can look quite nice. For me, I'm just gonna fix this by kind of brushing this out with a spoolie. But yeah, unfortunately for me, the brow pen has not worked all that well. Now for the brow powder, I have this in medium brown. This is very, very long expired. I bought this maybe like 5 years ago, but I'll show it to you guys today. So I have here this angled brush that I'm just gonna use it to provide a little bit in this area. I can't say this is my favorite brow product because I don't really use it ever, but I bought this kind of back when I was going for more of a natural brow look, and I do think brow powders are pretty good for that. Obviously today I'm not really showcasing the natural brow look because I have so many products in my brows, but hopefully it gives you a general sense. And just to give you guys a little bit of an impression, so here's what it looks like next to the brow pen. So you can see it's a little bit less precise. And then if I go into the lighter shade, that's how the lighter shade looks. And to complete the comparisons, this is what Granite looks like from the Brow Wiz, and this is how the brow definer looks. So here we have brow pen, brow powder deeper, brow powder lighter, Brow Wiz, and brow definer. So they look kind of similar overall. So now for the brow gel. So first we have this Dip Brow. I have this in the shade dark brown. So this is what the spoolie looks like. I do find I need to be quite careful with this product because it's quite wet. So it definitely applies pretty pigmented if you're not too careful. So I'm just gonna put a little bit on today so you can see what that looks like. There we go. It's a nice brow pomade. I do like how it makes my brows look, but I have had some mistakes here and there where I've applied too much and it can go overboard quite quickly. Finally, we have this clear brow gel, which I don't really have room for today, but I'll put it on this side just in case it makes a small difference. I don't really like this product that much. I find that it doesn't do much for my brows. It doesn't really hold them. It just kind of makes them look a little bit wet until it dries. So I wouldn't really recommend this product. Overall, for me personally, I would say of the ABH Brow products, I definitely like the Brow Wiz the best. The rest of them are pretty solid, but none of them are my favorites. I prefer some of the products I have from other brands, like my M Cosmetics Brow Gel, my Dear Dahlia Brow Pencil, my Gucci Brow Pencil. So even though ABH kind of started as the Brow Queen, at least for me, it's not really my favorite brow brand anymore. So moving right along, let's set my face now with this ABH Loose Powder. This is a very large translucent powder, and I'm going to go in with my Refer number 19 brush for this. So I'm first just going to sweep a little bit under my eyes and then over the rest of my face. I do find that this powder is quite mattifying, so if you have dry skin like myself, take a very gentle approach with this powder. For me personally, this is not one of my favorite powders. This also got relegated to my second drawer. But if you have a more oily skin type, I think that you might like this powder. So here we have my mattified complexion. Honestly, normally I would prefer kind of the luminous finish that the foundation left, but for today it is pretty warm where I am, so I'm not mad at the fact that this is looking a lot more matte. So now let's get into this ABH Primrose palette. I'm pretty excited about this because when this first came out, I was really intrigued by it, but I ended up not picking it up because ABH is, not a brand that I consistently... Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Yikes. Oh no. Okay, so one shade is completely shattered and just completely fell onto my dress. Actually, two shades. Wow. Okay, so, oh my God, this is really, it's the first time this has happened to me. Okay, so these two shades, oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, so let me clean this up. That's very disappointing. Oh my gosh, yeah, that's a lot of eyeshadow on my dress right now and just like all over the place. Okay, let me clean this up and I will be back. All right, so I did my best to clean this palette up. I mean, as you guys can tell, it's still very messy. Basically, the entire palette is covered with this Fire Opal and Rosewater shade, so I'm actually gonna put this back down. My entire room is also covered by these shades, so I'm quite disappointed. I honestly feel like I probably need to just like throw away this palette because it's just so crumbly, like everything is getting everywhere, but I'll still do a look for you guys today. Hopefully we can still get a sense of what these shades look like despite the fact that they're all covered in a ton of glittery shades as well. But the show must go on. So I'm gonna start out with the shade Honey, and this is just kind of the lightest shade. Ooh, actually, wow, this is really pretty. The quality of the shadow is really nice. It's been a very long time since I used ABH shadows. Actually, Modern Renaissance was my first high-end palette purchase. So ABH eyeshadows do have a special place in my heart from that standpoint. I feel like for a while, ABH was kind of all the rage in terms of high-end eyeshadow. Then they kind of lost their way, but recently with like Art Nouveau and some of the other palettes like Rose Metals, I think they've gotten a lot more acclaim. And this palette, Primrose, was supposed to be a nice one, but I mean, I really like how this blended. This is really nice, but I just don't know what to do with this palette given that it's in shambles right now. But okay, here we have the shade Mango. I'm glad that these are still applying matte despite the fact that there's a bunch of shimmer particles stuck in them as well. But here's Mango. That's really pretty. That actually really matches my dress today. And I am very impressed with this quality. Like I said, it's been a while since I've used ABH, but these eyeshadows are blending out so effortlessly. Wow. I mean, I'm mostly very committed to my Pat McGrath and Natasha Denona shadows, but these are really nice. Good job, ABH. Too bad the really high impact shimmery ones are the ones that completely shattered, but that looks really nice. So now with my reference number 15, let's start deepening up this look a little bit. I'm going into Claret. Put that, the outer portion. Ooh, that's pretty. I think this is a really nice palette if you want to do kind of a sunset inspired look. It really has all of the shades that you would want for that kind of look. And then with this reference number 26, I'm going into Deep Berry. And I'm going to concentrate this along the lash line. This is the deepest shade in this palette, so this is what you're probably going to mostly be using for smoke and depth. Taking a little bit of Claret again, and then Mango again. Alrighty, so now for the shimmers, let's see. I guess I'll go into what is left of Fire Opal, and I'll put this on the outer portion of the lid. This is a very flaky shade, as you can tell from the fact that it is all over my room now. Quite pretty, a little bit warmer than I typically go for, but Fire Opal is a very appropriate name for this. Oh wow, I just realized I have all this eyeshadow here as well. Oh my gosh, how did this get all over the place? Like truly, Fire Opal is everywhere right now. Not what I was expecting when I sat down to film today. So there we go. It's a nice shade, really pretty. Honestly, not that special though, considering how much of a mess I made, but still nice. And then I'm going to take some of Rose Water as well, because this is also everywhere. And just dab this in the inner third. Actually, I probably should have saved this for the inner corner, but that's okay. Let's just roll with it. It's a little bit brighter than I thought it would be based on how it looks in pan. Similarly, quite pretty, not super special. I would say the mattes so far in this palette are a lot more unique and interesting than the shimmers. Okay, so just try to kind of tie these two areas together. I'm going in with my reference number 21 into Peony, and I'm gonna sweep this at that kind of intersection. It's not layering that well on top of the Rose Water shade, but let's try to just build it up. Yeah, in general, I'm quite underwhelmed by these shimmers. I mean, I'm probably a little bit biased because of today's mishap, but if I'm comparing this with my Pat McGrath or Natasha Denona shimmers, these are just kind of ordinary. They're nice, there's nothing really wrong with them, but also nothing to write home about. Definitely gives a really pretty metallic effect on the lids though, I'll give it that. Okay, I think that blends in a little bit better now. So for the lower lash line, I'm going to first go in with my Esom S31 brush. And let's see, in the interest of using more of the shades, I'm going to actually go into Primrose. This is kind of a matte shade that has some shimmers in it. Let's see how it looks. Oh, that's pretty. If you wanted to do a really nice purpley look, this would be a great transition shade for that. Oh, nice. I like that. It mostly translates like a matte, but you can definitely see some faint pink shimmers if you look closely at it in person. And I am getting a little bit of fallout with that shade, so I'm going to clean that up a little bit. And then going back in with some Deep Berry in the outer corner, because again, that's our one deepening shade for this palette. And then the one shimmer I haven't used yet is Sparkling Amber. So I'm going to take some of that on my reference number 2 brush and sweep that along the inner 2/3 of the lower lash line. So this shade doesn't have the best stick on top of those mattes. Pretty, but it takes a little bit of building up. Alrighty, so here we have, I think I used all of the shades except for Rouge. So let me see if actually I can incorporate Rouge a little bit. So I'm going back in with my reference number 16 brush, taking just a little bit of Rouge and, is this gonna ruin it? Just add a little bit of that to the crease area. I feel like where all of the shades kind of run together is looking a little bit like Rouge anyway. All right, there we go. So we did manage to use all of the shades in this palette. I'm gonna go off camera, clean this up, and add some eyeliner, and then be back for the blush. So here we have the finished eye look. What do you guys think? Overall, I'm quite pleased with how the eyes turned out. I really like just how multi-dimensional this looks. All of the shades really do work together quite well. And like I said, I think this is a perfect kind of sunset vibe. It actually goes really well with the colors in this dress. So I'm happy from that perspective. But the shimmers are definitely where I felt a little bit let down. I mean, it's really pretty, and if it hadn't shattered, I think I wouldn't have a problem with it. But considering the shattering situation, it was not really, sufficiently beautiful and in your face and special for how breakable it is. But let's finish things off with blush. So there are two blushes in this palette. I'm going to go in with my cheek brush from Sonia G into Saddle first. This is the deeper shade. Ooh. So this is kind of a terracotta shade. I'm going to concentrate this on the outer portion of my cheeks. Definitely quite high in pigmentation. I mean, you could probably use this actually quite easily as eyeshadow as well. It reminds me a lot of the Rouge shade in this palette. And there is a little bit of luminosity to this just from the eyeshadow that shattered, but I think this is actually a matte blush. So there we go, that's looking quite nice. With that same brush, I'm going into the other shade, which is Grapefruit. This one is a little bit pinkier, peachier, a little lighter, very pretty. I'm so sad that this shattered because I feel like this palette is actually quite nice and very, very handy. This is a very nice color story for quite a versatile variety of occasions, like really nice for an everyday look, but you can also really glam it up like I did today. So it's a little bit too bad that it's now so difficult to use for me. Adding just a little bit more Saddle as well. I wouldn't say this is my favorite blush formula. You definitely need to buff it in a little bit, but it does look pretty once buffed in. Alrighty, here we go. So that is all of the blush down. So to complete this look, let's go in with this ABH Satin Lipstick in the shade Praline. This is a peachy nude shade. And I did actually wear this earlier today, so this is not a completely new impression. I wanted to be able to comment on the formula for you guys, but let's first just put this on. For context, I do have some lip balm on underneath. So I think that shade Praline on me is sort of like borderline concealer lip. I think normally I would want to go in with a lip liner, but because I don't have an ABH lip liner, I'm just going to go in with the shade by itself. But I do think it goes really well with this overall look. This look is very like peachy, kind of sunset vibes as well. And having worn this earlier today, I would say this is a really nice satin lipstick formula overall. I really like the packaging. It's quite weighty in the hand, definitely more luxe feeling than most of the ABH products from today. And the lipstick is quite long lasting, quite comfortable. It's nothing mind blowing. I wouldn't say like you have to run out and buy this formula right away, but I do enjoy it. And it has a very subtle kind of birthday cake flavor to it, but other than that, it doesn't have that much fragrance. So here we have the finished look. So zooming you guys out, let's go over my overall thoughts of the products that I used today. So I'm really glad that I decided to do this full face of ABH because ABH is kind of a brand I haven't really thought about for a while. As I mentioned earlier, Modern Renaissance was one of my first eyeshadow palettes, and from that standpoint, ABH always does have a special place in my heart. Also, the Brow Wiz was one of the first brow products I really fell in love with. So from that standpoint, I do have some, special nostalgia for ABH. That said, in recent years, I haven't been as attracted to their products, but it was nice to kind of gather all of the products today and kind of develop my thoughts about them. So first off, in terms of complexion, I think actually the foundation's looking really, really nice right now. Like I said, I tried this before and wasn't wowed, but I am really impressed with how it looks today. The combination of the foundation, concealer, and powder actually all goes pretty well with each other, and today I think is actually a pretty nice application overall. Now that the foundation is powdered, you don't have that same luminous effect, but I think on an everyday basis, if you use a sheer layer of it, it's really perfect even if you don't powder. It doesn't have like such a strong dewiness that you have to powder. So from that standpoint, I do like that formula. As I mentioned already, I love the Magic Touch Concealer. Definitely would recommend this formula. And the powder, previously I would have said I do not recommend because the first time I used it, it was just way too drying. But now that it's kind of the summer months, I feel like if you use a very small amount like I did today, it actually looks really nice. In terms of the brows, I'm actually quite pleased with how my brows look. Maybe I need to just use like 3 to 5 products in my brows to achieve this look in the future, but they look really nice. They're quite voluminous, quite filled in. I don't think they look dramatically different, even though I used quite different products on both sides. So maybe ABH has still got it when it comes to the brow products. In terms of this palette, I think that if it had not arrived shattered, I would be really happy with it because I do really love how this look turned out. I love the blush as well. It's really pretty. This color story is also really up my alley. I love sunset looks. Overall, I would say the mattes really blew me out of the water. I was really, really impressed with just how easy they were to blend out, to layer on. So would really highly recommend their mattes. The shimmers were nice, but nothing to really write home about. I think the shimmers in Rose Metals are a little bit more high impact because I did swatch that palette in store. In Primrose, it's more kind of like your everyday shimmers, beautiful metallics, but nothing particularly sparkling or unique. In terms of the bronzer, I think it melted into the foundation really nicely and is looking really good. It also is sitting really well under that powder, so I really like it. I wouldn't say that's my favorite shade of cream bronzer. I do have a lot of cream bronzers now, so there's a lot of competition, but so far, at least upon initial impressions, this seems like a really solid formula. And then, as I mentioned with the lipstick, I really like it so far. Do recommend still putting a lip balm underneath it though, because earlier when I wore this, I feel like it was a little bit less comfortable and hydrating than I would prefer. But right now, with some lip balm underneath, it feels amazing. So on the whole, I would say ABH is a really solid brand. Is it my favorite brand? No. Other than the eye primer and the Magic Touch Concealer, it doesn't have my all-time favorite products. But pretty much everything I tried on today was really solid, and so from that standpoint, if you see ABH products that you're personally really interested in, the formula or the shades really speak to you, they do have really solid products, so I would recommend it from that standpoint. I would love to hear in the comments what you guys think about ABH. Do you have favorite or least favorite products from them? Have you tried out any of these products that I had today? If you have Primrose or other palettes, I would love to hear if they arrived intact because I'm very sad that mine is shattered. And I mean, I like this look enough that I think I'll probably keep this, but I'm gonna have to put this back in the box and really be quite careful with when I bring it out. So that's it for today's video. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!